Welcome to FCLE Seminar, the podcast to help you pass the Florida Civic Literacy Exam. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto, and today we're talking about another case that deals with guns and how we understand the Second Amendment. That case is the District of Columbia versus Heller. This 2008 decision tackled a big question. Did a strict gun law in Washington, D.C. violate the constitutional right to bear arms? So let's unpack the facts, the arguments, and the court's ruling. Grab a coffee. Let's get started. Landmark Supreme Court case number 24, District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008. Case background. First, we're talking about Washington, D.C. in the early 2000s. More specifically, we're talking about something called the provisions of the District of Columbia Code. What? I know, right? See, this code made it illegal to carry an unregistered firearm. On top of that, handguns were prohibited from even being registered. Except for the caveat that actually the chief of police could issue a 1-year license for handguns, even though I just said that guns couldn't be registered. Okay. So what kind of code is this? I'm already confused. To make it even more complicated, let's say you were a legal firearm owner of said lawfully registered item. This code required the item, the gun, to be kept unloaded, disassembled, and if not disassembled, then perhaps stored with a trigger lock or something similar. I know. But wait, there's more. These additional requirements under the code didn't exactly apply to owners of lawfully registered firearms if it was being used for recreational activities that were legal or if it was out of business. So what does all this have to do with the case? Here's where it gets real. Enter Dick Anthony Heller, an authorized handgun carrier while on duty as a D.C. special officer. See, Heller applied for a license to keep a handgun at home, and get this, he was denied. Heller didn't take this lightly. See, he sued the District of Columbia, arguing that parts of the code violated his Second Amendment right to keep a firearm in his home without a license. Like many of the landmark Supreme Court cases before this case was dismissed at the district court level. Then there was a reversal by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. See, they ruled that the Second Amendment does indeed protect the right to keep firearms in the home for self-defense, and that the DC's code requiring guns to be non-functional went too far. Translation, this was a violation of the Second Amendment. Naturally, this case went all the way to the Supreme Court, where the justices had to answer, does DC's code, the one called the Provisions of the District of Columbia Code, do parts of that code violate the Second Amendment? The court's decision. The Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, ruled in favor of Heller that the whole ban on registering handguns and keeping the guns, for example, disassembled, non-functional, trigger-locked, etc., violated the Second Amendment. Justice Scalia wrote the majority opinion, and my words here is that he broke it down like this. The Second Amendment's mention of militia is an introductory clause. It sets a stage, but it doesn't limit the main point, which is the right to keep and bear arms. See, Scalia argued that militia back in the day didn't just mean a formal military. It referred to all capable and able-bodied men who could be called to serve. So the amendment wasn't just about limiting the Second Amendment right to militias. It was about ensuring individuals could have weapons to defend themselves. Scalia went on to talk about the operative clause of it all, and that banning a specific class of arms, in this case handguns, or requiring people to keep firearms non-functional in their homes for self-defense or protection, well, I mean, actually, it goes against the Second Amendment. After all, if your gun is disassembled or locked, how can you use it to protect your home? Well, that at least was one of the questions. See, the majority said the provisions of the District of Columbia Code were unconstitutional because they went too far in restricting this core Second Amendment right. But not everyone on the court agreed. Some justices argued that the Second Amendment is all about militias, not an unlimited right for individuals to own guns, and that the amendment's text specifically mentions the militia-related and not exactly individual self-defense-related interests. So complicated. So to wrap it up, the court proposed an interest balancing test, basically. And this means weighing the government's need to regulate guns with an individual right to bear arms. So this case about guns and the Second Amendment is a hot topic, and it gets pretty complex. So, I mean, I encourage you to look into it for yourself, and get a deeper understanding. The constitutional principle. I know we just talked about the court's decision, but let's look at the Second Amendment itself. It reads, quote, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed," end quote. Sounds straightforward, right? I mean, well, not quite. See, the debate hinges on what those words mean, especially the part about the militia and the right of the people. Let's review. The key takeaways from District of Columbia versus Heller are, at this time, the Supreme Court established that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm for self-defense within a home. This was a major shift from prior interpretations that focus on the right existing within militias. Number two, the case involved a challenge to the provisions of the District of Columbia Code on restrictive gun laws that made it difficult to lawfully own and keep a functional firearm in a home. The court's decision effectively struck down these D.C. Code restrictions. Number three, this was a 5-4 decision, and this decision was not unanimous. See, dissenting justices discussed the militia-related intent of the Second Amendment and argued for a narrower interpretation that allowed for reasonable limitations, resulting in the proposal of the interest balancing test, meaning the government regulations must be sufficiently weighty to justify the proposed regulation. That was a quote. And number four, the District of Columbia versus Heller continues to be a highly debated and influential case, shaping gun control laws and legal interpretations of the Second Amendment. So what does all this mean? The Heller decision was a game changer. For the first time, the Supreme Court clearly said that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep firearms at home for self-defense, not just militia service. It struck down D.C.'s code on guns and the rule requiring guns to be non-functional, setting a precedent for future gun law cases. This case also left open big questions like, how far can governments go in regulating guns without violating the Second Amendment? And what kinds of restrictions are okay? See, those debates are still on fire today and shaping laws and court battles across the country. That's all for today's Florida Civic Literacy Podcast. What do you think about the Heller decision? I mean, did it strike a balance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and join us next time as we explore another landmark Supreme Court case. Until then, keep asking those big questions and stay curious. This is your host, Mercedes Musto, signing off.